All right, greetings, everybody. Betwabu. Happy Saturday. All right, y'all. Let's get started early today, y'all. It's getting crazy out there, ain't it? Well, I tell you, people, there's a lot of people that's calling out. What is going on? Had this been a different group of people, there'd be way more catastrophe going on right now. And the body count is adding up. Right now, they realize 5 people have passed. One was a Capitol police officer. The other 3 were involved in the actual protests, and a couple of them in the actual rioting. Well, we know one for sure. The female retired Air Force member was a part of the actual the mob action rioting, because she got shot as she was climbing through a opening that they had just bust open, and she was shot by a Capitol police officer right in the neck. Yeah, so people, this stuff started getting worse. Stay y'all butts in the house. I'm gonna tell y'all, like y'all told me before COVID the protests about COVID started breaking out. He said, listen, I know some of y'all remember when I said it. He said, when the riots break out, no, matter of fact, he said, when they begin protesting, do not go. So I'm telling you, although it may seem for a noble cause or a righteous cause as the days come or whatever, I tend to just listen to y'all so I keep myself safe. Because if you do something that he tells you not to do, there's not a guarantee that you're going to get to keep your life, or something's not going to happen to you. Because if you say stay in the house, it's the reason why he told you to stay in the house. So, yeah, it makes no sense to me with Secret Service. Many more should be dead. Dana, I'm telling you, like I said yesterday, had that been us, it would have been blood and guts and black bodies everywhere. So, but we're not going to harp on that. We're letting it play out. But what they did do there, what y'all probably seen, they done banned the president from social media and everything, and not just him, but a few other accounts as well. Because of something he said, and especially they banned him right after he said that he wouldn't be attending the inauguration of Biden. The way he said it, the other powers that be said it seemed like, and when I read it, I didn't even know what they were going to say. I was just reading the article. But when I read it, it seemed to me that was like an indication. Listen, if y'all want to do something, just know I won't be on site. So go ahead and do what you're going to do. Not saying that was his intentions at all, because we could be wrong. But because everything that's going on and how he has not reined in a bunch of overly zealous people that love him, they believe he's a major threat to America, because it seems like that he's giving indirect calls for a coup d'etat to happen or whatever on his behalf. But did you see the video that they talked about facial recognition? Yes, they are telling on themselves. I was looking at some of the videos. I'm like, before they even said, I'm like, man, they must have forgot about the internet police. Sure enough, they got facial recognition, but ain't no facial recognition like the internet police. Boy, they naming people left and right, finding their pages. And I was reading some of the articles, and while I was reading, let me tell you something. I got such hear me when I say this, I got such a good belly laugh, because I'm like, they couldn't have been that foolish. It was like a rhetorical statement of fact. Like, you had to have known in a day of social media this was not going to go well with you out there, especially even if you was out there peacefully. Once the poop started hitting the fan, literally, y'all should have turned around and went home, because people going to be recorded, and it's going to make it across social media and end up on national TV, which it did. And you got lawyers losing their jobs and everything out there. I'm like, what were you guys thinking? Actually, not just protesting, like the ones in that have prestigious positions, like you a lawyer, but you were caught not just with the protesters, but with the mob action riot protesters breaking into the Capitol, and like y'all are recording yourselves. I'm like, you know what? It don't get no better than this. They are telling, like you said, they telling on themselves. I'm just, pop my popcorn. Look, come look. Jeremiah sent me a text last night. He was looking at some of the videos of what was happening. He said, this is better than live TV. Oh, I mean, this is live TV, but I got what he was saying. It's crazy. It is really crazy. So, enough about that, y'all. It's just going to keep going on. So, we'll keep watching it as the days go by. It's just going to get crazier and crazier. But you remember, you all, stay close to the Most High. Be vigilant. And vigilant. Be diligent and vigilant. Okay, y'all. So first, before I get started, let's go ahead and start with the shimmer. Hold on, did I pull? I didn't even give the I keep adding notes to my thing. They keep pushing my thing back further and further. Yeah, so guys, happy Saturday. It is January the 9th, 2021. Day 46 of year 3 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets. And of the 3-year consecutive day count, it is day 715. All right, so we're going to go ahead. That's when you know the spirits are real, yes. Tiffany, I'm telling you. Okay, y'all. Hear, therefore, Israel, observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily, as Yahuwah, the God of our fathers, has promised us, in a land that flows with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah, our God, He is one God, and you shall love Yahuwah your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in your heart, and you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them upon the posts of your house and on your gates. And Yahuwah commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear Him, Yahuwah our God, for our good always, that He might preserve us alive as it is this day. And it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do these commandments before Yahuwah our God, as He has commanded us. Alicia, top of the day. Okay, beautiful people. Today, we are in Exodus chapter 10, picking up with the plagues. And guess what? The locusts are coming. All right, y'all. So here we go. Okay. Okay. Then Yahuwah spoke to Moses, "Return to Pharaoh and make your demands again. I have made him and his officials stubborn so I can display my miraculous signs among them. I've also done it so you can tell your children and your grandchildren about how I made a mockery of the Egyptians and about the signs I displayed among them, so you would know that I am Yahuwah." Make sure y'all paying attention to this now. What we're seeing out here as America begins literally to implode upon itself because of all the foul treatment that they have dealt to Yahuwah's people, and not just us here in America. I know sometimes, because I see people come at different places where our brethren that are scattered to other places outside of America, they like, hey, don't forget about us here too, So when I say America because I live here in America, just like our brothers and sisters, they're doing videos and whatever it is, radio shows, crying out to our people, listen, the Most High is coming for us again. He has not forgotten about us. They're there. If you go look, if you have not looked already, they are there. Also, waking up everybody. Oh, real quick, there was something else yesterday. Do you know I found somebody else, y'all, that is talking about, well, this is probably, I want to say this. The fourth person I found besides myself that is talking about the Sabbath lining up with the moon, with the new moon, like the new month and the new moon, and how the Sabbaths rotate. Boy, I watched that video a couple times yesterday. I'm like, yes. I say, Father, yes. And what happened was it really brought this warming over my soul, like, yes, Father, you are waking us up everywhere. And this person doesn't live like anywhere close to me. They like live out. They like live out in the boonies because they got some land somewhere. And they've also been on YouTube and not just reading, but they do more of a teaching. I literally just read word for word and add in some of my personal experiences, and how I understand the scriptures. They're actually like teaching classes and stuff like that. But they did a video that was posted yesterday, and I came across it while I was looking up something. And I'm just like, yes, Father, you are restoring this information back to your people again, because you got to think about it, y'all. Once Yahuwah said that after this wilderness that after this captivity that he was going to bring us back to that wilderness, the same wilderness where our forefathers were, where he met them face to face. Remember when I read that section about them out there and he gave them the Torah, he presented the Torah to them. And remember the Torah, when they actually heard his voice for the first time, that place. That's what it says, that we're going to go back to that place. Now, how are we going to get that, how all that's going to work and what that look like, I don't know. I really don't know yet, y'all. I'm just being honest. I don't know what that looks like because we're scattered to the four corners of the earth. And how he said he was going to gather us. He said he was going to gather us. But also if you read in Isaiah, it talks about calling for the ships of Tarshish to gather us and begin to bring us back home. And it looked like one place is describing, said, who are these that fly like birds and land softly on the windowsills? That to me, it describes a plane. That, think about airplanes flying in the air, carrying multiple people, but land as soft as doves. We know they don't necessarily land as soft as doves, but you get the picture. So I'm putting all those pieces together. But I think we're going to be pushed out of here just like they were pushed out, because it's going to be so much catastrophe that begins to happen in the land that it's like, we have seen, we got to get these people out of here, get them back, uncover, stop lying to these people, get them back to the land that belongs to them, give them back their stuff. Speaking of plague, I wonder if any of those followers of Yahuwah have gotten COVID-19. You mean those of us who are keeping his law, statutes, and commands? I just want to make sure I'm understanding your question right. Dana. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep reading. Well, I was on like verse 2. Yes. Okay. Well, yes, because remember yesterday we talked about there's a separation coming up. Remember when Yahuwah said, I'm bringing a separation between my people and your people? Yes, there are some followers of Yah who have gotten it. But those that I know, they have not died from it. They recovered from it. Remember how I said, I wonder early in the year, I wonder if this is the separation of the people. But because I seen some of Yahuwah's people who actually keeping it, I was like, this is not the separation, because the first few plagues affected everybody, the Egyptians and the Hebrews alike. So everybody's being affected right now. But there's something coming that there's going to be a very distinct separation between Yahuwah's people and our captors, but yeah, Dana. All right, so then Yahuwah said to Moses, return to Pharaoh and make your demands again. I have made him and his officials stubborn so I can display my miraculous signs among them. I have also done it so you can tell your children and your grandchildren about how I made a mockery of the Egyptians and about the signs I displayed among them, and so that you can know I am Yahuwah. Shayla, we already did it. You must have missed it, sis. I did it, but thank you for reminding me. So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, this is what Yahuwah, the God of the Hebrews, says. How long will you refuse to submit to me? Let my people go so they can worship me. If you refuse, watch out, for tomorrow I will bring a swarm of locusts on your country. They will cover the land so that you will not be able to see the ground. They will devour what little is left of your crops after the hailstorm, including all the trees growing in the fields. They will overrun your palaces, and the homes of your officials and all the houses in Egypt. Never in the history of Egypt have your ancestors seen a plague like this one. And with that, Moses turned and left Pharaoh. Pharaoh's officials now came to Pharaoh and appealed to him. How long will you let this man hold us hostage? Let the men go to worship Yahuwah their God. Don't you realize that Egypt lies in ruins? So Moses and Aaron were brought back to Pharaoh. All right, he told them, go and worship Yahuwah your God. But who exactly will be going with you? Moses replied, we all gonna go. Young and old, our sons, our daughters, our flocks, and our herds, we must all join together in celebrating a festival to Yahuwah. Pharaoh retorted, Yahuwah will certainly need to be with you if I let you take your little ones. I can see through your evil plan. Never. Only the men may go worship Yahuwah, since that is what you requested. And Moses threw them out the palace. Good day, Natasha. Then Yahuwah said to Moses, raise your hand over the land of Egypt to bring on the locusts. Let them cover the land and devour every plant that survived the hailstorm. So Moses raised his staff over Egypt, and Yahuwah caused an east wind to blow over the land all that day and through the night. When morning arrived, the east wind had brought the locusts, and the locusts swarmed over the whole land of Egypt, settling in dense swarms from one end of the country to the other. It was the worst locust plague in Egyptian history, and there has never been another one like it. For the locusts covered the whole country and darkened the land. They devoured every plant in the fields and all the fruit on the trees that had survived the hailstorm. Not a single leaf was left on the trees and plants throughout the land of Egypt. Pharaoh quickly summoned Aaron and Moses. I have sinned against Yahuwah your God and against you, he confessed. Forgive my sin just this once and plead with Yahuwah your God to take this death away from me. Shalom, shalom. Y'all say, I bet. Pharaoh quickly summoned Moses and Aaron. I have sinned against Yahuwah your God and you, he confessed. Forgive my sin just this once and plead with Yahuwah your God and take this death from me. So Moses left Pharaoh's court and pleaded with Yahuwah. Yahuwah responded by shifting the wind, and the strong west wind blew the locusts into the Red Sea. Not a single locust remained in all the land of Egypt. But Yahuwah hardened Pharaoh's heart again, and he refused to let the people go. Then Yahuwah said to Moses, lift your hand towards heaven, and the land of Egypt will be covered with a darkness so thick that you can feel it. So Moses lifted his hand to the sky, and a deep darkness covered the entire land of Egypt for 3 days. During all that time, the people could not see each other, and no one moved. But there was a light as usual where the people of Israel lived. Finally, Pharaoh called for Moses. Go and worship Yahuwah, he said. But leave your flocks and your herds here. You may even take your little ones with you. No, Moses said. You must provide us with animals for sacrifices and burnt offerings to Yahuwah our God. All our livestock must go with us too. Not a hoof can be left behind. We must choose our sacrifices for Yahuwah our God from among these animals, and we don't know how we are to worship Yahuwah until we get there. But Yahuwah hardened Pharaoh's heart once more, and he would not let them go. Get out of here, Pharaoh shouted at Moses. I'm warning you, never come back to see me again. The day you see my face, you will die. Very well, Moses replied. I will never see your face again. Exodus chapter 11. Then Yahuwah said to Moses, I will strike Pharaoh and the land of Egypt with one more blow. After that, Pharaoh will let you leave this country. In fact, he will be so eager to get rid of you that he will force you all to leave. Tell all the Israelite men and women to ask their Egyptian neighbors for articles of silver and gold. Now Yahuwah had caused the Egyptians to look favorably upon the people of Israel, and Moses was considered a very great man in the land of Egypt, respected by Pharaoh's officials and the Egyptian people alike. Moses had announced to Pharaoh, this is what Yahuwah says, at midnight tonight I will pass through the heart of Egypt. All the firstborn sons will die in every family in Egypt, from the oldest son of Pharaoh who sits on his throne to the oldest son of his lowliest servant girl who grinds the flour. Even the firstborn of all the livestock will die. Then a loud wail will rise throughout the land of Egypt, a wail like no one has heard or will ever hear again. But among the Israelites, it will be so peaceful that not even a dog will bark. Then you will know that Yahuwah makes a distinction between the Egyptians and the Israelites. All the officials of Egypt will run to me and fall to the ground before me. Please leave, they will beg. Hurry and take your followers with you. Only then will I go. Then, burning with anger, Moses left Pharaoh. Now Yahuwah had told Moses earlier, Pharaoh will not listen to you, but then I will do even more mighty miracles in the land of Egypt. Moses and Aaron performed these miracles in Pharaoh's presence, but Yahuwah hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he wouldn't let the Israelites leave the country. Okay, so remember how it says it kind of lumps it up. So if you've read ahead in Jasher, or if you've read ahead in Legends of the Jews, you will see right here, although we see just the 10 plagues right here, it tells you that Yahuwah said, I'm going to do even more mighty miracles in the land of Egypt. And Moses and Aaron performed these miracles in Pharaoh's presence, but Yahuwah hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he wouldn't let the Israelites leave the country. So it was more than these 10 plagues that was done. They just didn't add them in here. But if you go into Jasher and read, and we're going to see when we get to them over here in the Legends of the Jews, some of the other plagues that had happened, so that's going to be pretty exciting to see some of this stuff. Okay, last chapter in Exodus for the day before we hop over to the Legends of the Jews. Exodus chapter 12. While the Israelites were still in the land of Egypt, Yahuwah gave the following instructions to Moses and Aaron. Y'all, pay attention, right? Because this is telling us, and a lot of people get it, and I talk about it a lot. Everybody here probably already know, but just in case somebody comes to the video today and they don't know, this is where you check it. Remember how I always tell you that what Yahuwah say should be the core foundation, should be the basis of what we believe, not what anybody else is teaching. Granted, we can, if what they're saying lines up with what Yahuwah says, okay. But when they go in and start changing stuff because of whatever reason, because the church fathers or the prophet or apostle, I don't care who they are and what they said, even if they're listed in here in the Bible, if they go against what Yahuwah says, it will behoove you to discard that information from them and go with what Yahuwah says. And I'm going to give you an example about this, right? Now, we're about to read about Passover and what Yahuwah says about this first month. Now, in the Jewish community, and I realize a lot of our people who are waking up to who we are, what they're doing, like, oh, they've stolen our identity. They're doing what we're supposed to be doing. They got some stuff right, but some stuff is like the exact opposite. It's like they're doing everything backwards. They're like flip-flopping stuff. Like if Yahuwah tell us to celebrate it here at the beginning of the year, they doing it at the end of the year. And this is one of the things, because the Passover month is the first month of the year, as we're going to see Yahuwah say in chapter 12 of Exodus, verse 2. From now on, this month will be the first month of the year for you, for us. You will notice that the Jewish people, they celebrate the beginning of the new year in September during a Feast of Trumpets. Yahuwah didn't say that. They call it Rosh Hashanah, head of the year. That is not what Yahuwah said. I don't care what they said and how long they have been doing it. That's why we're in the land of our captivity, by listening to what other people say and not what Yahuwah himself has said. The first month of the year for us is doing Passover month, right? And everything. They flip the days to the night. You begin celebrating the day of the night. You don't do that. Even nature is telling us when your body wake up, unless you're working a night shift, when the sun wakes us up, we're children of the light. We're children of the day. When the sun is out, we up and we're doing our work during the day. At night, what happens? Even our bodies will line up with nature. At night, our bodies begin to get sleepy. We get tired. That's the time we rest, right? The Jewish people, the day begins at sundown. Yahuwah only said that for one thing, and that was for the Day of Atonement. And he made it very, and I believe he made it so very clear so that we wouldn't confuse it with the other days. All the other feast days, festival days that he commanded us to keep, they began like at sunrise, because on the Day of Atonement, listen, the Day of Atonement is the 10th day of the 7th month, right? Which, when we keep in the months according to how Yahuwah says, we know it's about the September, October time frame, but it's in actual September. And matter of fact, before they start screwing around with the months, that's probably Alicia, September used to be the 7th month of the year, and I believe it was January and February that they later added to the year. Like, it's crazy what they did with this calendar, y'all, when y'all see it. So it will behoove us to stick as close to what Yahuwah has said and keep it. Granted, sometimes as we start waking up, we're kind of fumbling through the dark and we're finding our ways, like, oh, and Yahuwah leads us to people who are also trying to find him. We link up, we got more strength, we're crying out together, more eyes are looking and searching, oh, duh, and Yahuwah leads us and he guides us into all truth. So the Day of Atonement is the only day that Yahuwah, Passover too, because you begin celebrating, I would say Passover and Day of Atonement. But the Day of Atonement, he says, begin celebrating on the 9th day, which is the day before, the 9th day at evening, when the sun goes down, right? Same thing with Passover. We have to celebrate it on the 14th day of the month at sundown. Why? Because the Passover event is not like a whole day. It's only a few hours span, beginning at sundown on the 14th day of the month until sunrise of the next day. Because on the 15th day, the 14th day at sundown until the 15th day of the morning is Passover. It's not a full day. It's just like the nighttime, all of the nighttime of the 14th day. But it says the very next day begins the Feast of Unleavened Bread. I cannot reiterate this to you guys enough. We hear people talk to us a lot, and we don't a lot of times go back and actually read it word for word. I cannot stress enough. You have to lay your eyes on this yourself and read it for yourself. Yahuwah will give you the interpretation. A lot of it, you can take it at face value. When other people who it was not given the power to teach us begins teaching us, they teach us out of their own understanding. But Yahuwah did not give the Torah to them. He gave it to us. And through the time of our captivity, they've had it and they've taught people. And some of a lot of, I ain't gonna say everything, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. A lot of things they done flip-flop and got you all discombobulated and stuff, and you're still not making the connection. But just go to Yah because he's giving it to us. Okay, Father, what did you really mean by that? That's why I'm like, when you read it, go back, start at the beginning. Don't start in the New Testament, start at the beginning with what Yahuwah has given us. What was they doing in the New Testament? Did they have the New Testament in the New Testament? Absolutely not. They all had the Torah. Everyone was learning from the Torah. Nowadays, everybody just learning about the New Testament. That is not what we do, people. That is not what we do. That is not what we do. Even they in the New Testament had the Torah. That was the only thing they had. They all had the Old Testament, some of the old scrolls. They didn't have none of the new stuff that we're reading about them. They didn't have that. Everybody had the Torah, the Old Testament. They was talking about the prophets, Isaiah and Jeremiah, everybody. So why shouldn't we be looking at the same thing that they also was looking at? And I don't think some people get that. And you're right, they're doing it so backwards. Why? Because people have been teaching us that have not gotten the authority from Yahuwah himself to teach this. And there's only one nation of people that he has given the Torah to, and they are to teach the nations. Why? Because they will give the proper interpretation of it, and they will begin to point to people and see how this is. He puts it everywhere in nature for us to see. And it's not these big, deep revelations and stuff that they get people all off track when they give their false prophecies. Okay. Feel my blood starting to boil a little bit. So let's go on back here, y'all. So I just wanted to point that out to you, what he's saying about the first month. We're coming up on this, right? We're in January now. We're still in the 10th month of the year, right? So next, the full moon, I'm sorry, not, I keep saying that. Not the full moon. The full moon is the middle of the month. The full moon is always the 15th day of the month, y'all. I keep getting tongue-tied. But the new moon, when it's completely black, is the new moon. And then we call the new moon on the day that we sight the new moon, the first slither. So remember, even though Enoch tells us that the new moon is when she is completely diminished of all her light because she's beginning to start her cycle again, we can't call it out until we can actually see it. And that's what the Feast of Trumpets teaches us. So on the first day of the 7th month, we're to watch for it. And if you're in a habit of keeping the days and tracking the days, we'll be out there and we won't miss it, right? We'll see, and there's somebody out there, and you begin yelling from post to post, new moon has been sighted, new moon has been sighted, and everybody began preparing for the new moon feast and stuff, and it's almost treated, remember how I told y'all before, I said, it wasn't said that it was a Sabbath day, but they still held feasts and treated like a Sabbath day, although Yahuwah did not command that we rest on those days, but they were in the habit of it. How do we know? Because when Yahuwah was talking to them about all their shenanigans, look, I'm sick of all your religious feasts that he called, although he gave it to him, he said, I'm sick of your religious feasts, your new moons, your Sabbath, your feast days. Why? Because they were doing it religiously without actually living it. They was just doing it, but they were still living like the sons and daughters of hell, So he said, stop doing it all. Don't, you defiling my name, my land, everything. So I just really wanted to bring that out for y'all. Okay, so let's go. While the Israelites were still in the land of Egypt, Yahuwah gave the following instructions to Moses and Aaron. From now on, this month will be the first month of the year for you. Announce to the whole community of Israel that on the 10th day of this month, each family must choose a lamb or a young goat for a sacrifice, one animal for each household. If a family is too small to eat a whole animal, let them share with another family in the neighborhood. Divide the animal according to the size of each family and how much they can eat. The animal you select must be a 1-year-old male, either sheep or goat with no defects. Take special care of this chosen animal until evening. On the 14th day of this month, the whole assembly of the community of Israel must slaughter their lamb or young goat at twilight. Remember, y'all, we're in the land of our captivity. We ain't got a lot of us don't have any flocks or anything, and plus we can't do it. But in the last couple Passovers, just to kind of keep with this, although we didn't have a lamb that we slaughtered ourselves, we went to the store and we purchased like a lamb, a small little lamb, so we could at least keep to that, right? And even though I don't eat meat, like I said, I like to keep to it as much as possible. So I did eat just like I cut me a very, very little piece just to keep the command of eating it on Passover. I just cut a very little bit and I ate it, so okay. Take special care of this chosen animal until the evening of the 14th day of the first month. Then the whole assembly of the community of Israel must slaughter their lamb or young goat at twilight. They are to take some of the blood and smear it on the sides and on the top of the door frames of the houses where they eat the animal. That same night they must roast the meat over a fire and eat it along with bitter salad greens and make bread without yeast. So also, Feast of unleavened bread starts on day 15, that next day, but you are also to eat unleavened bread on Passover. So from Passover on to the end of this feast, we aren't to eat anything with yeast. Do not eat any of the meat raw or boiled in water. So don't put it in the crock pot. Don't put it on the stove. Put it in the oven to roast it, or put it on the grill. The whole animal, including the head, legs, and internal organs, must be roasted over fire. There you go. Do not leave any of it until the next morning. Burn wherever is not eaten before morning. So in that case, when we bought some, we made sure we didn't get like a whole big thing, just only enough that would suffice for our family. And we made sure all that was gone. That way we ain't really had to burn nothing up, So do not leave any of it until the next morning. Burn whatever is not eaten before the morning. These are your instructions for eating this meal. Be fully dressed, wear your sandals, and carry your walking stick in your hand. Eat the meal with urgency, for this is Yahuwah's Passover. On that night, I will pass through the land of Egypt and strike down every firstborn son and firstborn male animal in the land of Egypt. I will execute judgment against all the gods of Egypt, for I am Yahuwah. But the blood on your doorposts will serve as a sign, marking the houses where you are staying. When I see the blood, I will pass over you. This plague of death will not touch you when I strike the land of Egypt. Now, I don't know about y'all, but when I was growing up, we had holy oil, a blessed oil, and it would be like virgin olive oil that my mom would pray over, and we would take that and we would use that as a representation of the blood. And we used to always anoint ourselves with it. We would go through anointing the doorposts of the house and stuff. And me not even realizing when I was younger that we were actually symbolizing this particular act right here, making sure we were protected. I'm just like, man, we was doing this stuff. My mom was teaching us this stuff, and it wasn't necessarily clicking with me at the time. But as I began to actually get back into it, I'm like, wait a minute. We did this growing up, so. But still, we was still in the church and stuff. And it's just like, when you don't go through and read it daily like this, you just don't make the connections. You pull out things here and there because that's what you're taught, But now that we know better, we do better. Yahuwah is waking up all his people. Celebrate this festival of unleavened bread, for it will remind you that I brought your forces out of the land of Egypt on this very day. This festival will be a permanent law for you. Celebrate this day from generation to generation, meaning forever. The bread you must eat must be made without yeast. From the evening of the 14th day of the first month until the evening of the 21st day of that month. During those 7 days, must be no trace of yeast in your homes. Remember how I said, don't wait till like the day before Passover to start doing this. Literally, I would say probably a good month before. Even 2 is better, but sometimes you're still eating stuff with yeast. But just get your household in the mind frame. And I would say definitely don't buy anything else with yeast a week out, because you might forget it's there. Just get into a good habit of always practicing this and getting your household in the practice of it, right? So we're about coming up on that again. The bread you must eat must be made without yeast from the evening of the 14th day until the 14th day of the first month until the evening of the 21st day of that month. During those 7 days, there must be no trace of yeast in your homes. Anyone who eats anything made with yeast during this week will be cut off from the community of Israel. These regulations apply both to the foreigners living among you and the native-born Israelites. During those days, you must not eat anything made with yeast. Wherever you live, eat only bread made without yeast. It says wherever you live. So in captivity and outside of captivity, wherever, forever, in every generation. That's what Yahuwah said. Yeah, we got rid of a lot of bags of food last year. We didn't throw everything away. Things that were still sealed and in good condition, like some seasonings and stuff that had already had hope open, I gave them away. But we gave a lot of food away to people who were not keeping Yahuwah's feast. Like my neighbor, even after I had cleaned everything out, Yahuwah said, you missed something. I said, what did I miss? Go check your soups again. I'm like, I checked all these soups. So I went and I checked, and sure enough, there's a section I just assumed, okay, boom, this is good, this soup is good, this soup is good. But there was 3 rows of soups, at least 12 cans of soups that I just assumed because I checked the first few. Oh, all of these must be free of yeast. I was so wrong, and I thank y'all, because just before the Passover came in, he said, go check again. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, we done already made the run to give all the other food away. What am I going to do with this? I'm like, you know what? A neighbor definitely is going to take this. So I went and checked with my neighbor, and he said, you sure? He said, you want to switch it out for something? He's a nice old gentleman, Mr. Henry, live next door. He said, well, do you want some? And I said, no, Mr. Henry, just take it. I said, we're celebrating the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and as a part of our practice, we can't have anything with yeast in our home representing, us cleaning our lives, our homes, cleaning out all the sin. He was like, oh, He said, that's interesting. He said, okay. He said, you sure you don't want anything? I give you some. And I said, no, Mr. Henry, just take it. You know, he said, okay. He said, you sure now? I got some other stuff. We can switch it off. I said, no, Mr. Henry, I'm good. Thank you so much. You know, should we be putting blood on our doorposts? Should we? Dana? I'm going to tell you what we did. Like I said, we do everything, although we had oil, you know, and we do that, you know. Still from time to time, I will take the oil. So I keep some oil that I bless, you know, because sometimes just anoint yourself, lay hands on your children or whatever and pray, or just anoint yourself and pray. But what I did, I'm going to be honest with you, that's what I did. I was like, okay, because, you know, you buy the lamb, and it got like little traces of it or whatever. But so I'm just like, okay, Father, I say, by all means, this seems unsanitary to me. Mom, I said, but I'm going to just keep with this command. Yes, baby girl.
I'm making lemonade.
Okay, wait a minute. Don't get the sugar yet. I said, so, but I'm going to do this. So what I did, I'm just being honest, tell you what I did. I said, Father, this seems completely, I don't even think we're supposed to be touching it. I said, so I got like this little, like, you know, you have your like cooking paintbrushes and stuff. So I got one, I dabbed it in. I said, Father, although this seems unsanitary to me, I'm doing this to keep with the command. So I just dabbed in a little bit, and I didn't like, I just kind of like, this is what I did, y'all. And don't listen. If you keep it to the commands, just keep it to it how who is telling you to do it. I did. Alicia said I did. I took it and I like just dabbed the top of the doorpost. You know, I said, Father, let this supernaturally, let this little dot cover the whole doorpost. I said, because we ain't got enough blood to do that anyway. So I'm just doing this to keep the commands. I'm going to take it. I'm going to just dab it on the doorpost. And that's what I did. The front, back door. I even did the windowsills, a little dab. I did, you know, so that's what the word said, not oil. Yeah, so that we actually did use the blood from the lamb. So we did. I didn't smear it. I didn't have enough to smear it. I just took the little, what was up there before we cooked it, and I just dabbed it up there. I know it don't say dab, get what I'm saying, but, you know, we're in the land of our captivity, and most of our people probably didn't have lamb anyway, but not making an excuse, but I'm just telling you, that's what we did, you know. So I did. I was like, okay, Father, let this spread supernaturally. I said, forgive us, we just don't have enough lamb's blood, you know. So, but, okay, y'all. Celebrate this festival of unleavened bread, for it will remind you that I brought your forces out of the land of Egypt on this very day. This festival will be a permanent law for you. Celebrate this day from generation to generation. The bread you eat must be made without yeast from the evening of the 14th day of the month until the evening of the 21st day of that month. During those 7 days, there must be no trace of yeast in your homes. Anyone who eats anything made of yeast during this week will be cut off from the community of Israel. These regulations apply both to the foreigners living among you and to the native-born Israelites. Bella! During those days, you must not eat anything made with yeast. Wherever you live, eat only bread made without yeast. You got to cut that off before it falls. Catch it. Thank you. Then Moses called all the elders of Israel together and said to them, go pick out a lamb or young goat for each of your families and slaughter the Passover animal. Drain the blood into a basin. Then take a bundle of hyssop branches and dip it into the blood. Brush the hyssop across the tops and sides of the door frames of your house. And no one may go out through the door until morning. For Yahuwah will pass through the land and strike down the Egyptians. But he will see the blood on the top and sides of the door frame, and Yahuwah will pass over your home, and will not permit his death angel to enter your house and strike you down. Remember, these instructions are a permanent law that you and your descendants must observe forever. When you enter into the land Yahuwah has promised you, you will continue to observe this ceremony. Then your children will ask, what does this ceremony mean? And you will reply, it is the Passover sacrifice to Yahuwah, for he passed over the houses of the Israelites in Egypt. And though he struck down the Egyptians, he spared our families. When Moses had finished speaking, all the people bowed to the ground and worshiped. So the people of Israel did just as Yahuwah commanded through Moses and Aaron. And that night at midnight, Yahuwah struck down all the firstborn sons in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on his throne to the firstborn son of the prisoner in the dungeon. Even the firstborn of their livestock were killed. Pharaoh and all his officials and all the people of Egypt woke up during the night, and a loud wailing was heard throughout all the land of Egypt. There was not a single house where someone had not died. Pharaoh sent for Moses and Aaron during the night. "Get out," he ordered. "Leave my people and take the rest of the Israelites with you. Go and worship Yahuwah as you have requested. Take your flocks and herds as you have said and be gone. Go, but bless me as you leave." All the Egyptians urged the people of Israel to get out of the land as quickly as possible, for they thought, "We will all die." The Israelites took their bread dough before yeast was added. They wrapped their kneading boards in their cloaks and carried them on their shoulders. And the people of Israel did as Moses had instructed. They asked the Egyptians for clothing and articles of silver and gold. Yahuwah caused the Egyptians to look favorably upon the Israelites, and they gave the Israelites whatever they asked for. So they stripped the Egyptians of their wealth. And Yahuwah said that this is going to happen again. He said to Abraham in Genesis chapter 15, I believe it starts at verse 12, he said, "Your descendants are going to be in the land for 400 years, oppressed by their captors." He said, "But at the end of that time," he said, "I'm going to come and deliver them, and I'm going to judge those nations who held them captive and did all manner of horrible things to them." He said, "And they are going to come out with riches." It's going to happen again. So they stripped the Egyptians of their wealth. That night, the people of Israel left Ramses and started for Succoth. There were about 600,000 men, plus all the women and children. A rabble of non-Israelites went with them, along with great flocks and herds of livestock. So the rabble of non-Israelites is that mixed crowd that went along with them. For they baked bread. They was like, "Yep, nope, Pharaoh, we out of here." These were actually Egyptians. "Yep, we out. We're going with them." Yeah, them. You see what their God just did? These guys we've been worshiping, they couldn't even stand. They couldn't even defend us against him. So we are changing our allegiance to the God of Israel. Goodbye. That night, the people of Israel left Ramses and started for Succoth. There were about 600,000 men, plus all the women and children. A rabble of non-Israelites went with them, along with great flocks and herds of livestock. For they baked the bread. For the bread they baked flat cakes from dough without yeast they had brought from Egypt. It was made without yeast because the people were driven out of Egypt in such a hurry that they had no time to prepare the bread or other food. The people of Israel had lived in Egypt for 430 years. In fact, it was on the last day of the 430th year that all Yahuwah's forces left the land. On this night, Yahuwah kept his promise to bring his people out of the land of Egypt. So this night belongs to him, and it must be commemorated every year by all the Israelites from generation to generation. Let me tell you. I wonder how they felt when they got stuck in the wilderness for 40 years with the Israelites. Yeah, right. We can't get 10 family members to meet somewhere on time. I'm telling you. But listen, right here, where it said, and I mentioned this yesterday too, it says the people of Israel lived in Egypt for 430 years. But if you read in the Apocrypha in Jasher, and if you also read in the Legends of the Jews and a couple other manuscripts, it tells you the exact time that they were living, the whole time that they sojourned, the whole time that they were in Egypt, from the time they came from their land during the famine when Joseph was still alive in the palace, up until this day right here, that total time was 430 years. But the first 220 years, they lived in peace. They didn't have no problems. They was bringing all the inventions and everything that Yahuwah was giving them. And Egypt was like the world power at this time. But from the time that the new Pharaoh came on the scene, who didn't know Joseph and decided to deal wisely with Yahuwah's people, that time to up until this day is after the 230 years. the hard labor bondage that they were in was a total of 210 years, and it calls out the 210 years in the Apocrypha and also in the Legends of the Jews and other manuscripts. When we hear it in the movies, we let somebody else tell it. They say, "Oh, this is the 400 years." No, it's not. They were only, remember, Yahuwah told Abraham, he said for 400 years they would be oppressed. They would be in hard bondage, hard labor for 400 years, right? 400 years. And this time they were only in a hard bondage and hard labor for 210. Added to the other time that they were there, made the other 220 years and made it 430 altogether. So people miss that because they don't read, they don't see it, right? So, but when you see it, you must adjust what you know and align it rightly with the truth. Okay, that's why I keep reiterating this, because some people may not pick it up. Then Yahuwah said to Moses and Aaron, "These are the instructions for the festival of Passover. No outsiders are allowed to eat the Passover meal, but any slave who has been purchased may eat it if he has been circumcised. Temporary residents and hired servants may not eat it." So listen, y'all. Also, when it talks about slaves here, they were selling them. A lot of them were selling themselves into slavery. Like they were hiring themselves out. You know, like you go get a job, we hire ourselves out to a company or to wherever, and they give us a wage in exchange. But they had stopped doing this under the hand of Pharaoh. But when Israel had slaves or people who hired themselves out to them, even if they were their own brothers and sisters, they were called servants, you know, and a lot of it, they changed it to slaves, right? Okay. Temporary residents and hired servants may not eat it. Each Passover lamb must be eaten in one house. Do not carry any of its meat outside, and do not break any of its bones. Hey, chill, y'all. The whole community of Israel must celebrate this Passover festival. If there are foreigners living among you who want to celebrate Yahuwah's Passover, let all their males be circumcised. Only then may they celebrate the Passover with you like any native-born Israelite. But no uncircumcised male may ever eat the Passover meal. This instruction applies to everyone, whether a native-born Israelite or a foreigner living among you. So all the people of Israel follow all Yahuwah's commands to Moses and Aaron. On that very day, Yahuwah brought the people of Israel out of the land of Egypt like an army. Excuse me. Okay, y'all. I didn't realize that our reading was going to take that long, so we're going to go ahead. We're going to hop over here to the Legends of the Jews, and we're going to read one little section so we can kind of keep with our time for the day. I need y'all to quiet down. Oh, I got my page number wrong. Okay, so page 214, if you got the same size book I have, but if the smaller book, the title is called The Youth of Moses. So we're just going to read this. Maybe read these two little sections. Guys, hush. Y'all getting louder and louder. Okay. The Youth of Moses. One day, after he was grown up and had passed beyond the years of childhood, Moses went to the land of Goshen, in which lived the children of Israel. There he saw the burdens under which his people were groaning, and he inquired why the heavy service had been put upon them. Hold on. I'm sorry. We read that. I did. I got my page number wrong. I'm sorry. It's the next section, y'all. On page 215. Yeah, it's the next page, page 215, and the title is The Flight. I'm sorry. And the angel of Yahuwah took Moses to a spot removed 40 days' journey from Egypt, so far off that all fear was banished from his mind. Indeed, his anxiety had never been for his own person, but only on the account of the future of Israel. The subjugation of his people had always been an unsolved enigma to him. Why should Israel, he would ask himself, suffer more than all the other nations? Think about it. How our people, we have suffered more than all the other nations. That's still true to this day, right? But when his personal straits initiated him in the tale-bearing and backbiting that prevailed among the Israelites, still sound like us, don't it? That prevailed among the Israelites, then he asked himself, does this people deserve to be redeemed? The religious conditions among the children of Israel were of such kind at the time as not to permit them to hope for divine assistance. They refused to give ear to Aaron and the 5 sons of Zerah, who worked among them as prophets, and admonished them unto the fear of Yahuwah. It was on account of their impiety that the heavy hand of Pharaoh rested upon them more and more oppressively, until Yahuwah had mercy upon them, and sent Moses to deliver them from the slavery of Egypt. When he succeeded in effecting his escape from the hands of the hangman, Moses had no idea that the royal throne awaited him. It was nevertheless so. A war broke out at this time between Ethiopia and the nations of the east that had been subject to it until then. Where is Ethiopia at? Right? Think about where Ethiopia is at and what type of people live in Ethiopia, right? Remember, Israel's land was by them. Think about it. Remember I said pay attention to the surrounding nations? Okay, I just want to bring that out. A war broke out at this time between Ethiopia and the nations of the east that had been subject to it until then. Kikanos, the king, advanced against the army with a great army. He left Balaam and Balaam's 2 sons, Jannes and Jambres, behind to keep guard over his capital and take charge of the people remaining at home. The absence of the king gave Balaam the opportunity of winning his subjects over to his side, and he was put upon the throne, and his 2 sons were set over the army as generals. To cut Kikanos off from his capital, Balaam and his sons invested the city so that none could enter it against their will. On 2 sides they made the walls higher. On the 3rd day they dug a network of canals into which they conducted the waters of the river, girding the whole land of Ethiopia. And on the 4th side their magic arts collected a large swarm of snakes and scorpions. Thus none could depart and none could enter. Meantime, Kikanos succeeded in subjugating the rebellious nations. When he returned at the head of his victorious army and espied the high city wall from afar, he and his men said, the inhabitants of the city, seeing that the war detained us abroad for a long time, have raised walls and fortified them, that the kings of Canaan may not be able to enter. On approaching the city gates, which were barred, they cried out to the guards to open them, but by Balaam's instructions they were not permitted to pass through. A skirmish ensued, in which Kikanos lost 130 men. On the morrow the combat was continued, the king with his troops being stationed on the thither bank of the river. This day he lost his 30 riders, who mounted on their steeds and attempted to swim in the stream. Then the king ordered rafts to be constructed for the transporting of his men. When the vessels reached the canals, they were submerged in the waters, swirling round and round as though driven by mill wheels, swept away 200 men, 20 from each raft. On the 3rd day they set about assaulting the city from the side on which the snakes and scorpions swarmed, but they failed to reach it, and the reptiles killed 170 men. The king desisted from attacking the city, but for the space of 9 years he surrendered it, so that none could come out or go in. While the siege was in progress, Moses appeared in the king's camp on his flight before Pharaoh, and at once found favor with Kikanos and his whole army. He exercised an attraction upon all that saw him, for he was slender like a palm tree. His countenance shone as the morning sun, and his strength was equal to a lion's. So deep was the king's affection for him that he appointed him to be the commander-in-chief of his forces. So think about this. All the time where Moses was away, remember he had ran away? because they say, oh, you gonna kill us like you killed the Egyptian? Oh, this thing is known, Pharaoh gonna kill me. So Moses took off. But during this time, and that this was before he met his wife in Midian, right? So from the time that Moses left, Yahuwah began training him on how to lead his very own army, his very own forces out of Egypt. So pay attention to all of this, y'all. Moses, he's going into the next step of his training while he begins to lead this army, right? So deep was the king's affection for him that he appointed him to be the commander-in-chief of his forces. At the end of the 9 years, Kikanos fell a prey to a mortal disease, and he died on the 7th day of his illness. His servants embalmed him and buried him opposite to the city gate toward the land of Egypt, and over his grave they erected a magnificent structure, strong and high upon the walls, whereof they engraved all the mighty deeds and battles of the dead king. Now, after the death of Kikanos, his men were greatly grieved on the account of the war. One said unto the other, counsel us what we shall do at this time. We have been abiding in the wilderness away from our homes for 9 years. If we fight against this city, many of us will fall dead. If we remain here besieging it, we shall also die. For now all the princes of Aram and the children of the east will hear that our king is dead, and they will attack us suddenly, and they will fight with us until not a remnant will be left. Now therefore let us go and set a king over us, and we will remain here besieging the city until it surrenders to us. Okay, what time we at? We at an hour. You know what? Let me go ahead and read the king of Ethiopia. We should be done with this in like 3 minutes. So I'm going to read this and then we'll stop. The king of Ethiopia. They could find none except Moses fit to be their king. They hastened and stripped off each man his upper garment and cast them all in a heap upon the ground, making a high place on top of which they set Moses. Then they blew with trumpets and called out before him, Long live the king, long live the king. And all the people and the nobles swore unto him and gave him Adoniah for wife, the Ethiopian queen, the widow of Kikanos, and they made Moses king over them that day. They also issued a proclamation commanding every man to give Moses of what he possessed, and upon the high place they spread a sheet wherein each one cast something, this one a gold nose ring, that one a coin, an onyx stone, bdellium, pearls, gold, and silver in great abundance. You'll also see this story if you go read Jasher. You'll also read this story in Jasher. Yes, Moses had a first wife, but she divorced him because he refused to sleep with her, right? Moses would not break the commands of Yah. Moses was 27 years old when he became king over Ethiopia, and he reigned for 40 years. On the 7th day of his reign, all the people assembled and came before him to ask his counsel as to what is to be done about the city they were besieging. The king answered them and said, If you will hearken unto my words, the city will be delivered into our hands. Proclaim with a loud voice throughout the whole camp unto all the people, saying, Thus said the king, Go to the forest and fetch hither the young of the stork, each man one fledgling in his hand. If there be any man that transgress the word of the king, not to bring a bird, he shall die. And the king shall take all belonging to him. And when you have bought them, they shall be in your keeping. You shall rear them until they grow up, and you shall teach them to fly as the hawk flieth. All the people did according to the word of Moses, and after the young storks had grown to full size, he ordered them to be starved for 3 days. On the third day the king said unto them, Let every man put on his armor and gird his sword upon him. Each one must mount his horse, and each shall set his stork upon his hand, and we will rise up and fight against the city opposite to the place of the serpents. When they came to the appointed spot, the king said to them, Let each man send forth his young stork to descend upon the serpents. Thus they did, and the birds swooped down and devoured all the reptiles and destroyed them. After the serpents were removed in this way, the men fought against the city, subdued it, and killed all its inhabitants. And tell me that wasn't the wisdom of Yah. They ain't been able to get in there with all them serpents and stuff. They put booby traps everywhere Tell me that wasn't the wisdom of Yah. After the serpents were removed in its way, the men fought against the city, subdued it, and killed all its inhabitants. But of the people besieging it, there died not one. When Balaam saw that the city had fallen into the hand of the besiegers, he exercised his magic arts. Remember, they were doing magic back then, like what people, and there's still a lot of this going on today, y'all. So pay attention to some of this stuff, like all the things that they pull out that they know about that's going on, that they're actually using against the people and against Yahuwah's people. All this stuff is still going on today, y'all. When Balaam saw that the city had fallen into the hands of the besiegers, he exercised his magic arts, which enabled him to fly through the air, and he carried with him his 2 sons, Jannes and Jambres, and his 8 brothers, and they all took refuge in Egypt. Seeing that they had been saved by the king, and the city had been taken by his good counsel, the people became more than ever attached to them. They set the royal crown upon his head, and gave him Adoniah, the widow of Kikanos, to wife. But Moses feared the stern God of his fathers, and he went not in unto Adoniah, nor did he turn his eyes towards her. For he remembered how Abraham made his servant Eliezer to swear unto him, Thou shalt not take a wife for my son of the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I dwell. He also remembered what Isaac did when Jacob fled before his brother Esau, how he commanded his son, saying, Thou shalt not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan, nor ally thyself by marriage with any of the children of Ham. For Yahuwah our God gave Ham, the sons of Noah, and all his seed as slaves to the children of Shem and Japheth forever. So all our people that are marrying these other nations, Yahuwah said that's a big no-no. And everybody, a lot of people, they're just disregarding it. And it makes our plight so much worse. And our inheritance is even stole through that, right? At that time, Aram and the children of the east heard that Kikanos, the king of Ethiopia, had died, and they rose up against the Ethiopians. But Moses went forth with a mighty army to fight against the rebellious nations, and he subdued them. First the children of the east, and then Aram. We got a few more sentences, y'all. We'll be done. Moses continued to prosper in his kingdom. He conducted the government in justice, righteousness, and integrity, and his people loved and feared him. Oh, that we had that today, but it's coming, people. In the 40th year of his reign, while he was sitting upon his throne one day, surrounded by all the nobles, Adoniah, the queen, who was seated before him, rose up and spake, What is this thing which you, the people of Ethiopia, have done these many days? Surely you know that during the 40 years this man hath reigned over you, and have not approached me. He said he reigning over you, and he ain't even sleeping with me. He reigned over you, and he does not approach me, nor has he worshipped the gods of Ethiopia. Now therefore let this man reign over you no more, for he is not of our flesh. Behold, Marnarchos, my son, is growing up. Let him reign over you. It is better for you to serve the son of your Lord than a stranger, a slave of the king of Egypt. A whole day the people and the nobles contended with one another whether to pay heed to the words of the queen. The officers of the army remained faithful to Moses, but the people of the cities were in favor of crowning the son of their former lord as king. The following morning they rose up and made Marnarchos, son of Kikanos, king over them, but they were afraid to stretch forth their hand against Moses, for Yahuwah was with him. They also remembered the oath they had sworn unto Moses, and therefore they did him no harm. Moreover, they gave many presents to him and dismissed him with great honor. When Moses left Ethiopia in the 67th year of his age, it was a time appointed by Yahuwah in the days of old to bring forth Israel from the affliction of the children of Ham. But fearing to return to Egypt on account of Pharaoh, Moses sojourned to Midian. All right, y'all. So tomorrow we're going to pick that back up. And we're going to learn about how what happens when he gets into the land of Midian and meets his soon-to-be father-in-law, Jethro, and his wife, right? And so think about this. If y'all haven't seen the movie Sword in the Stone, where y'all think that came from? I'm telling you, they are not original about anything. They take our history and they put it in movies. They give it to Disney, Marvel, whatever movie place, any of these stories like this that seem to be fairy tales, you'll realize that they're not really fairy tales at all. They're not really fairy tales at all. We're gonna learn about where they got the sword and the stone, the movie The Sword and the Stone, from tomorrow. That was Moses. And you're gonna see. Also, Rapunzel, the one that was in the tower with the long hair let down. They changed a couple things, but do you know that it was King Solomon's daughter? King Solomon had a daughter who was so beautiful that he said, I need to keep her safe. And in her honor, he built a tower that was really, really, really high. And he built this and he furnished this tower with whatever she would ever need in life. He said, I got to keep my daughter safe. Well, ain't no man good enough for my baby girl. And it was her. And she had servants and everything. It gives you the details of everything. That's in the section about Solomon. We will get to that in the days to come. But that story right there, that was King Solomon's daughter. Think about Aladdin. That was King Solomon. King Solomon. Remember, they were practicing magic arts freely, y'all. So was King Solomon. Think about the Freemasons and the ring. That ring represents the ring that Yahuwah had given to King Solomon. And that ring was powerful. Where do you think they got that from? That's our history. Think about, King Solomon had a magic carpet that he flew on. He didn't just fly on it by himself, but it was a nice sized carpet. And even some of his servants flew with him. There's a lot of stuff, y'all, in here. So this next story that they've stolen from us and put in the movies, and just like I said, they flaunt all this in front of our faces, and we're none the wiser. Oh, that's a good movie. They talking about you. They talking about us. And flaunting in front of our face, and we're none the wiser. They've taken everything. All the stuff that Yahuwah has given to us, they're taking it and they're using it for their purposes and on the dark side of everything, y'all. But blessed be the most holy who sits on high, who's restoring all things unto his people. All right, y'all. I done ran my mouth enough for today. Let's go ahead and get out of here. Go enjoy this Saturday with your family. Spend time with y'all. If you got to work, be blessed. I hope you, if you gotta work today, I hope you're not at work watching this. Remember this recorded. Do not steal time, people. You on a man's clock. Get a man his time. Render unto Caesar what is due unto Caesar. Render unto Yah what is Yah. So get off that man clock if you at work. I'm sorry. Don't draw me into your sin. Right? I'm telling y'all this. So remember, it's always recorded, but for real, y'all. If y'all gotta go to work and I'm a little long-winded this morning, just cut me off, and pick it up later when you get a chance. So, all right, y'all. So with that being said, it is Saturday, January 9th, 2021, day 46 of year 3 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets. And of the 3-year consecutive day count, it is day 715. Remember, we got the new moon coming up next Wednesday. The last Sabbath of this moon cycle will be Tuesday. The new moon, we should be able to see it on the 13th. And then the Sabbaths will begin to fall on Wednesday, guys. So I hope you guys will come out there with me. I'll make a post or whatever. Just remember, make a note. New moon will be Wednesday. So as she's feeling like she'll feel a little bit more towards the end of the day. Remember, the beginning of the month, the moon rises and sets with the sun for like the first few days, like that first week. But if you go, you can find, like, look at the app or whatever, find out the times that the sun rises and sets, and find out the time that the moon rises and sets, and just be out watching. You may be able to see it actually throughout the day, but towards the evening more so when the sun sets. If you haven't seen it already, be watching, because the first week the moon is going to set almost an hour in time. Is going to be almost an hour after the sunset, so which I believe will be like, I think the sun sets, if I remember correctly, it's like 4:40 or something like that. and the moon is going to set like almost an hour after it. So just be watching. I'll keep reminding y'all every day, so just be watching so you can actually see. And then, it's the new moon, and we start the moon cycle over again. And so this next month, going into the 11th month of the year, the Sabbaths will fall on the same day that the new moon is sighted. So this next moon cycle, the Sabbath switch from Tuesday to Wednesday, people. Right? Okay. All right. So that's it. That's all for today. Let's go ahead and do the blessing. And we'll go ahead and get out of here and get about our day. All right. Remember, the blessing is found in Numbers chapter 6. Verses 22 through 27. Remember, the first 21 verses is the Nazirite vow. And Yahuwah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and unto his sons, saying, On this wise ye shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, May Yahuwah bless us and keep us. May Yahuwah make his face to shine upon us and be gracious unto us. May Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon us and give us his peace. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. All right, beautiful people. Love you. And we out of here. Bye.